Don't we all wish for the day when the house of our dreams is finally in our possession? We know we do. However, as life would have it, what we want hardly ever turns out good for us in the end, and unfortunately, this story proves just that. Unanswered Question Sid is about Christopher, a new homeowner who got much and more from his remote and rural property. As we reveal the details of this story, you will soon realize that nothing is as it looks, and everyone should get their home inspected before they buy it. And we mean everyone. When Christopher was done with the investigation and all the proof was in front of him, he knew his only choice was to go away and never come back. What exactly did he find when he explored his new home? Before we start, can we get this video to 1,000 likes? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Christopher Wanless purchased a new property not that long ago. Resting on 16.5-hectare woodland fields, he was thrilled to own a space that was completely his own. Once, he went on a tour of his new property and its surrounding area. The seasons were not gentle, and they have stripped away the outer layers of the trees in the area. Christopher enjoyed everything the area had to offer, from the bird songs to the silence of the forest. It was not long before his feet began to wander on its own as his body and mind both went into autopilot mode. Suddenly, something caught his attention. Christopher was still in some sort of haze when he approached the direction of the object that caught his interest. It was rather small and dark, almost like it was in hiding. He felt a thrill of excitement and some terror as he continued to inspect it. Christopher then stumbled and fell down into a 3-foot ditch. Covered by mud and leaves, he was dumbfounded by the fall. He shook it off and looked at what laid ahead in front of him. What he saw perplexed him. Did he really just discover a mine located on his property? Covered by mud and leaves, he was dumbfounded by the fall. He shook it off and looked at what laid ahead in front of him. What he saw perplexed him. Did he really just discover a mine located on his property? He was thrilled to embark on a new adventure, so he went home to get a flashlight that would let him see what was hiding in there. Christopher narrated that moment by saying, "When we bought the house, nobody ever told us about the fact that the estate had a lot of mines on it. We just sort of stumbled upon the gold mine one day, and that was it." At that time, he did not have any idea this would be the worst decision he would ever make. Nonetheless, he made it back to the entrance, now armed with a flashlight. He was holding his breath, and he was welcomed by something sparkly on the walls as he stepped inside. What was it? When he neared the walls, he could not help but brush his hand around the sparkling material of the stones. He remembered thinking, what if this was gold? Regardless of the temperature outside, the mine was cold and rather damp. He was quick to notice that the footprints he made left 4-inch indentations on the soil. It looked like there was a source of water, since there were fresh pools of water inside. However, as he looked ahead of him with the flashlight directed straight outward, he still could not see the end of the tunnel. He could tell that there was someone or something else in there. He then began hearing noises echoing the tunnel. Curious, he started to follow the source of the noise, and he clearly did not know that this was the wrong move to take. He could hear old metal parts and machinery somewhere along the path. Christopher suddenly felt strange and felt like there was weird energy down there. There was something pulling him back, and he felt like he should not have been there. Nonetheless, he kept following the path of the water to trace where it came from. He could not believe what he saw as soon as he looked back. He could only stand there for 2 seconds when his body finally reacted. He knew someone was there, watching him. He knew he had to escape and contact someone about what he found. The question now was who? Sweaty and terrified, he made his way home. Christopher immediately reached for his phone and got in touch with the realtor. He then began describing what he saw on the walls, the sparkly stuff that gave light to the small but deep tunnel. The real estate agent told him they were sending someone to take a look at it. When we went to ask about the place, we were finally told that the estate had actually been home to quite a lot of mining sites. A lot of mining was done in these hills at the turn of the century, and there are a lot of little mines that are scattered across the hills, Christopher recalled. Christopher had been standing in his kitchen when the call ended. Much to his surprise, the lights began to flicker. He made his way to the location of the switch in the room and turned it on and off. He still had his wits about him, so he quickly retrieved the flashlight from his pocket, flicked it on, and directed it to his thermostat. Christopher saw that the temperature inside fell quite a bit, and that his breath made a cloud in front of him. How strange, he thought. He wanted to get the power back on, so he headed for the circuit breaker. Maybe a fuse had just blown. Technical problems. He held up the light to the breaker. It did not look like anything was wrong. Everything was in check, and the main fuse looked perfectly fine. As he kept investigating the box, he tried switching different things on and off. Luckily, this worked, and he was relieved that nothing more sinister was at play. Faulty wiring, he told himself, even though he still felt nervous. He headed back upstairs to fetch himself a glass of water and calm himself down. The moment he got there, however, he heard the doorbell ring. What was it now? Mr. Rudall quickly introduced himself and explained that the real estate agent sent him because of what Christopher just discovered. Christopher showed Rudall to the entrance of the mine and told him to be careful as he made his way down to avoid hurting himself. They both took out their flashlights when they reached the mine. The sparkling substance looked even more evident this time, and the glare hit them in the face. Rudall approached the walls for a closer look, and he could no longer hold in his excitement. Rudall started telling Christopher how the mine was definitely a gold mine that had been made a long time ago. As he stared at the walls, it was evident that the gold remained untouched. There was enough evidence that the miners did not finish the job and abandoned the mine instead. Why was that? He will have all his courage to further investigate the mine, and there were two things on his mind. One, he could find gold instead. Two, it could also be haunted. Previously, he was only able to make it 150 feet into the tunnel. He knew that he needed to keep going no matter what happened. That was the only way he could get to the bottom of this. It was 600 feet into the tunnel that he discovered the source of the water. There were plenty of ruined objects huddled together, but it didn't make any sense to him. After all, why would anyone leave their stuff there? He saw a brick hideaway. This did not comfort him because who needed a hideaway in a door to mine? Using his flashlight to light the bricks, he saw some white scratches scribbled on the walls. He could then see that there were 4 vertical lines on the walls. It was odd, to say the least. All of a sudden, he heard something and a chill went through his body. There was someone else in there. He directed his flashlight to where he thought the sound came from. He ran for his life. He ran like a madman. He needed to find out what was going on. When he made it to his house, he dived for his study and shut himself in there. There was something odd going on in the mine, and he wanted to find out the answers to his questions. He enlisted the help of the internet. In the middle of his search, he started hearing knocking in series of threes. He felt a lump in his throat and swallowed. He managed to ask, "Hello." He took a couple of steps and turned the handle of the door to his study. He went to the kitchen, but a whirring noise caught his attention. It was coming from his camera. He picked it up, even though he was surprised it was open, since he remembered turning it off the moment he entered the house. He checked the pictures he captured earlier, but then something odd happened. He found absolutely nothing on the SD card. It had been wiped. He grabbed the camera again and started sprinting for the mine. He decided to face whatever might be in there. He had had enough. Christopher mustered all of his courage as he went back to the mine. At that moment, he heard the metal noise again. He couldn't believe what was going on. He knew he had no choice but to push onward. The metal noise sounded like a barrage of metals clunking together. He cupped his head in his hands for a long time. Everything stopped all of a sudden. He looked up the moment the sound became muted. The silence filled him with more horror than the noise did. And then he saw it. The chains hanging from the ceiling of the corridor began to swing in a rhythmic manner. It also looked like they were dancing. When his eyes adjusted, he saw a flood of water coming for him, not unlike a tsunami. He felt a headache coming on, and every single cell in his body screamed as he made his way toward the light of the mine entrance. What was he going to do next? As he was making his way out of the mine into salvation, he took another look behind his shoulder. He felt perplexed when he did not see any trace of water back there. He started his trek to his house. He knew he had to tell someone who could actually help him solve the mystery. Christopher made his way through the dark woods, but halted when he saw a light. It was coming from his kitchen. Did he leave them on? He was almost sure he didn't. Was someone else inside? He entered the door, but the house felt alone and empty. He needed to get out of there and asked for help. Perhaps there was a rational explanation to what was happening. He started his car and went to his mother's house after that and immediately put the house up for sale. The developers in charge of the property tried to contact him, but they never heard back from him. Instead, his mother took his place and sold the property on his behalf. She was open to negotiating with anyone who expressed an interest in buying it. Now, there are plenty of questions surrounding the story. Did Christopher really see everything he claimed to have witnessed? Or was his mind playing tricks on him, or was it truly haunted? While we will never know the answer to most of these questions, one thing we know for sure. Our homeowner has never visited the cursed gold mine ever since his last traumatic visit and warns everyone else to follow his suit.